Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another movie review, and today we're going to be talking about the recently released Coming to America, the sequel to Coming to America from 33 years ago. You remember that old Eddie Murphy movie? Came out in 1988. Yeah. Directed by John Landis. You remember that movie? I remember that movie. Actually, I watched it right before I watched this. It had been so long since I saw the original Coming to America that I was like, well, I guess I should. I guess I should dip back in. I guess I should check it out before I check out the new one because maybe I'd be lost. I'm sure there's a lot of callbacks and references, so I actually ended up watching that as well. And maybe we'll talk a little bit weaving in and out. But this film is directed by Craig Brewer. It stars Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Jermaine Fowler, Leslie Jones, Tracy Morgan, Kiki Lane, Sherry Headley, Wesley Snipes, James Earl Jones, John Amos, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: the African monarch Akeem learns he has a long lost son in the United States and must return to America to meet this unexpected heir and build a relationship with his son. So, yeah, coming back 33 years later. Eddie Murphy's kind of a little bit making a comeback over the past couple years. The last movie he made, Dolomite Is My Name, was also directed by Craig Brewer. It was that Netflix movie that came out last year. And I know a lot of people really love that movie. I was kind of in the camp of thinking it was okay to kind of mediocre. And a lot of that I would lay at the feet of Craig Brewer. I don't think he's a very good director. And his movies, at least of late, like he started out back in the day. He made a couple shorts. He made this movie called Poor and Hungry. Then he kind of gets big because of Hustle and Flow and Black Snake Moan, which are movies that are not really predicated so much necessarily on the direction, but there's something about a performer in it. With Hustle and Flow, it's Terrence Howard. With Black Snake Moan, it's Christina Ricci and Samuel L. Jackson. They're kind of the draws of the movie. It's not so much really even the story itself. It's just these kind of powerful performances that people kind of attach themselves to. And when he's working with these people, he's not, I don't know if he's just like, he can't modulate, like he can't capture these performances very well. And historically, and I can't imagine it's much different now. Eddie Murphy throws his weight around a lot. He's the kind of guy who's, he's stars, he's involved in the writing, he's a producer, and he's definitely probably like almost like a co-director. I'm not so sure if that was the case here, but I know that's been the case in the past, and that was actually the case in the original Coming to America. I've seen a lot of interviews with John Landis talking about making that movie, and he was kind of more of a director for hire, and he kind of just knew how to put it together, like technically, but really the people that were in charge were the actors, and like he would kind of just let them rip, and they would get the material they needed. He made sure they got the things that were necessary to tell the story in the script, and there you go. There's the rest of the movie. This movie, what could I say about this movie? Well, I guess, the first Coming to America, I'm not like a giant fan of. I think it's okay. I think it's a fine movie. Like it's funny in places. It's a little too long, in my opinion. It goes on for probably 20 minutes too long because it just takes a really long road to tell what is basically just kind of an archetypical rom-com type story with those types of characters. It's kind of sweet-natured. It's not really that edgy in terms of like, what you might be accustomed to for Eddie Murphy. It's probably one of his more almost like mainstream movies, honestly. It's the one that you could watch with your parents, I guess, as a turn of phrase. This one is even more so. This one is it's comedy sequels are so hard. And I'm not somebody that just like necessarily just hates something because it's a comedy sequel or whatever, but a lot of times when they have sequels to comedies, well, sequels to movies in general, but especially it's more noticeable in comedies, is when they just kind of do a retread of the previous movie and they kind of just double down on the jokes of the previous movie, and it's kind of comes off kind of lazy. I think a good example of this would probably be the Austin Power movies. The first Austin Powers really, it's a classic. It's a very funny movie. Austin Powers 2 is also funny, but it has that sense to it where it's just kind of drawing from the same well, and it's all callbacks and it's all retreads. And even though there's some new characters and stuff, kind of breathes some newer life into that movie, with Mini Me and whatnot, like Fat Bastard as well. Like, but it's still kind of the same tone and feeling. And especially once you get to Austin Powers 3, it's almost boring. It's so predictably in the same kind of vein and structure as the other two. Now, that's not to say you can't enjoy those movies. Not to say that I don't enjoy those movies on some level, but it is just kind of what it is. This one felt very much like, because so much time had gone by, that they really, really wanted to lean into the references to the old movie. And the thing is, they don't expand upon them in any way that felt really interesting. And I watched these back to back, which was a detriment to this movie, because it is so similar in a lot of ways. It hits a lot of the similar beats. They kind of update it, they modernize it. It's definitely more of like a millennial view of a modern romance. They kind of flipped the script a little bit, but not really. It's kind of the same. The thing that I was shocked the most, though, is how just not funny it was. It just wasn't funny. Like, the jokes didn't land well, and I think some of that is just Brewer. Like, as a director, even if Eddie Murphy's the one that has the ultimate say or whatever, you got to be able to kind of massage these things into place. What happened in the editing bay? Like, what happened that gave this movie its kind of pace and structure? That seems like it's probably what I found the most kind of off-putting about the movie, I suppose. And it's really flatly shot. It looks like a TV movie, which is weird because this was a movie that was kind of a victim of COVID in 2020. It was supposed to be a theatrical movie. It was supposed to come out in, I think, in August of last year. And, Paramount ends up selling it to Amazon. And then Amazon has it as, one of their Prime exclusives. And honestly, like, I don't, I would say this is a problem with comedies in general, but it's just that flat, lifeless lighting. It's not cinematic at all. And now that everything's shot on digital, it's even more so. It's like even worse. I don't know what the deal is. You go back and watch comedies from the 80s, 90s, the 70s, right? There's a texture there. They feel like movies. Now comedies kind of feel like TV shows a lot of the time. I can't remember like the last comedy I saw that I like really, really, really loved. I'm sure there's something in there in my brain somewhere. I'm sure there's something I've seen, but nothing's coming to mind. It's kind of crazy. The last movie I saw that I don't even think is like a great movie, and I probably wouldn't defend it, but the last one I saw that like really made me bust a gut was, surprisingly enough, was Anchorman 2: The Legend Continues, which is not, like I said, it's not a movie I would defend, because it's just a gag machine. But there's just something about it that I was just really, really tickled me. Like, just all the non sequitur stuff, all the scenes that are funny, just like in a vacuum, detached from the rest of the plot in the movie itself, because it doesn't really have much of a plot. Adam McKay trying to do his activist filmmakers thing is kind of almost like one of the things that kind of you feel him leading up to making The Big Short, and then he made Vice a couple years after that. He turned into shitty Oliver Stone. The DNA for it it's been in like, it was in like The Other Guys. It was in Anchorman 2, and then he finally kind of just goes for it with those other movies. But we're not talking about those movies. We're talking about Coming to America, which I guess is kind of indicative of Coming to America in the sense that there isn't a ton to say about it. I just wasn't really interested in what it was selling, and it's just this weird nostalgia piece, this weird, almost like a vanity project, which is not, I guess, crazy for Eddie Murphy to be in a vanity project, I suppose, but it just really fell flat. Like, the whole movie just felt so one note and so plotting. Like, I was really bored through most of it. And you don't ever get a good sense of these characters. If the first one has anything going for it, even though I think it is a little too long, but at least that length allowed for some sort of character development. There was kind of a mini arc with the character, even though, not an intense one, but it was there. At least there was some growth. We knew who they were as people a little bit. We could set expectations up and have them subverted, or you could juxtapose it with somebody else. But in this one, it's just not. They are just kind of who they are from the get-go, and everything is told to you. There's not There's no subtext to this movie. They just speak it out loud, which I suppose, it's a comedy. To be fair, it's a comedy. It's not great literature. It's not meant to be a serious drama. It's not meant to even be overly cinematic. It's supposed to make you laugh. And this really didn't make me laugh. I mean, the funniest scene in the movie, kind of in the same way with the original too, is like the old men in the barbershop. Like that's really, I'd rather just watch a movie about those dudes. And they're surprisingly enough, they're just like barely in the movie. Because most of this movie takes place in Africa. Most of it's not in the United States. They kind of go early, they get this guy, they bring him back, and he's kind of a fish out of water, and he has to learn about his heritage, and he has to learn about what it means to be a prince, because he needs to be a king. That's what motivates Eddie Murphy to go like kind of meet his not his estranged son, but the son he didn't know he had. So they actually go back and like kind of retcon some stuff from the original movie to kind of make this work. And it just felt really lazy. Apparently Ryan Coogler, the guy who directed Creed, Fruitvale Station, and Black Panther, he's the one that pitched that Eddie Murphy do like a sequel to Coming to America, and he pitched him a story. And I guess Eddie Murphy didn't like the story, but he was like, no, maybe I'll go back and do my own story. I bet you somebody like Ryan Coogler probably would have been a great director for this, and he probably would have been a great like at least story supervisor or something. Come up with something kind of unique. Ryan Coogler is not my favorite director in the world or anything, I do think he's a more thoughtful director than Craig Brewer, which I kind of started this rant with, is not just somebody that is just very forgettable, and is mostly became a TV director, and I think there's a reason why. Honestly, he did a bunch of. If he was heavily involved in like Empire, he did a TV movie Boomerang. What was it? Before Dolomite Is My Name, the last theatrical movie he had done was the remake of Footloose. So yeah, that's kind of where he's coming from. But yeah, pretty disappointed in the movie. And the fact, and it went for a PG-13, which I thought was kind of lame. Especially for an Eddie Murphy if he's going to come back and like kind of try to regain some of the juice that he had in like the 80s and 90s, just do a fucking rated R Eddie Murphy movie. Just go for it. That's another thing with the movie. It's surprisingly tame. It reminded me of the Shaft movie that came out a couple years ago, the one that Tim Story directed. Tim Story, another kind of hack director. He's very similar to Craig Brewer, actually. Probably a little worse than Brewer, but kind of similar. Tim Story directed the early Fantastic Four movies. He has a movie, Tom and Jerry, the new Tom and Jerry movie. He did that, which is just like, I haven't really watched it. I saw a little bit of it because I thought like maybe I have a kid, and I thought my kid might want to watch it. And he started freaking out. He's like, turn this shit. He's like, turn it off, Dad, turn it off. He was not interested. As soon as he saw that, like that disgusting cinematography, he was like, no thanks, Dad. I said, good job, son. Let's watch a Godzilla movie. Yeah, and it's just got the same, there's just a lifelessness to it. It's so tame and boring and just not interesting. Just like that Shaft movie. It's just like, it feels like a movie that's made for like your grandparents in a weird way. Which I guess maybe makes sense in terms of how old these dudes are now. These are old men. But I don't understand the point of doing, like, making this try to be more like kind of mainstream populist. But like I said though earlier, Coming to America itself is one of his more mainstream movies of the era. Like, even though it was rated R, and there was some edgy stuff in there, it's not really that crazy though. That movie is actually kind of tame as well, but you feel like coming back to something like this, you would want to really go for it. I had a little hope in the beginning because Wesley Snipes shows up. What's his character's name? What does he play? General Izzy, and he is going for it. Like, he's going for the big, broad silliness, and I feel like the movie could have just had a deeper edge to it if they had kind of maybe focused on some of that conflict, just more gangs, just more stuff, just develop those things a little more clearly, because he's kind of introduced as almost like a menace, like a threat to King Akeem. And it kind of just doesn't go anywhere. He's just like some pathetic dude that's trying to marry off his children so he can, like, be part of the kingdom, or whatever they call it, you know how these relationships work. Of course you do. But yeah, I can't recommend it, honestly. I was just kind of bored. And I know, I bet you though, with a caveat to say that, like, I also think that Coming to America is just okay. So maybe if you're a huge fan of that movie, maybe this will work for you. Also, like I said, watching the first one right before I rolled into this one, probably a mistake. A mistake in terms of cutting the movie some slack, because, in a meta sense, there's 33 years in between the original and this one. So for them as creators and writers to come back and do callbacks and do similar gags and stuff like that, maybe it would have landed better if I was more familiar with Coming to America and it had kind of stayed in my mind's eye, right? And rather than me, like, literally going back and watching it again. I think that kind of did Coming to America a disservice. Why couldn't they just call it, like, Coming Back to America or something? Why do they have to do this? Coming to America. It's like so fucking obnoxious. I hate when they do that shit. Fan force stick. They do these things to me. I don't know. I don't get it, And then you got, like, the Bad Boys movies, right? They got Bad Boys 2, and then Bad Boys for Life. They really fucked that one up. That could be confusing in the future. In the world where we have a billion Fast and the Furious movies and all the naming of the naming conventions are all confusing and screwed up. Like, some future kid, if they make another Bad Boys movie, he's going to watch Bad Boys for Life last. He's going to be so confused. He's going to be so lost. Think of the children, Willie. Think of the kids. What are they going to do? They're all going to be out arguing in the schoolyard. Be like, no, it's called Bad Boys for Life. Why would they call it that? Why would they call it that if it's the third movie? I don't know. Just fucking lazy. Like, who the fuck wouldn't have known if they called it, like, Coming Back to America or something like that? Like, people would have known it was a sequel to Coming to America. I'm just saying, like, fucking try a little bit, guys. Come on. Come on. But yeah, I was surprised how kind of, like, tame it was. Like I said, there's a few kind of obnoxious kind of wokeisms in the movie. I know some people would probably claim that how the way the movie ends is also kind of like, oh, it's like current year woke. But if you go back and watch the old movie, I mean, it has a similar convention in terms of, like, a king being able to kind of change the way things are done. He needs to remember that was the thing. I don't know. Like, maybe I was in the wrong mood for it or something. I don't know. I don't really want to watch it again, though. I honestly didn't even want to finish my first viewing. I was just like, but I was already like an hour in. This guy's like 45 minutes left. I was like, man, if I don't finish it, it'll just bother me. It'll just fucking bother me. So I might as well just stick through it for the last 45 minutes. And, well, at least I got to make a video. Maybe, 15 people will watch this and make it all of my time worth it. Make it all worthwhile. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, my brother Dan's Twitter, also our alternate YouTube channel, and our Twitch channel, and also our DLive channel, which is where we're doing most of the live streaming stuff. I do tons of random live streams all the time. I watch, funny videos and stuff. We usually, every Wednesday night, Dan and I get together. We kind of do the same thing together. It's a good time. So make sure to follow us over there. And we'll talk to you later. Have the best day ever.